You're listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hardscape Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Alex from TechnoBlock, and today we're joined by Patrick McGrath from RVA Patios and VB Patios, two Hardscape design, build, outdoor living companies in the state of Virginia. One in Virginia Beach, VB Patios, and one in Richmond, Virginia, RVA Patios. You can find them on Instagram at VB Patios or at RVA Patios. And today we're going to be talking with Patrick about growing a business, going from high volume business to high end business. And I think this is extremely pertinent to today's market and what we're facing. And as we start looking ahead to the future for 2024 and what that means for our Hardscape businesses, catering to the high end clients is extremely important. And there are a lot of lessons that Patrick and his team have learned over the years that they're going to share with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Patrick and I got to know each other a little bit over the course of the summer because we worked together on one of the Hardscaper Showcase projects that we'll be presenting this winter. So that's pretty cool. That was in Richmond or just outside of Richmond. A lot of things going on in that project, which we will be covering in depth at this winter's events. But in discussing those projects, we kind of talked about what was the journey to getting to these types of jobs. And it brought up a lot of good lessons that I think is important to share or are important to share with our audience today. So Patrick, why don't we start with just a little bit more about the two companies and why there are two companies, and then a little bit of that background of that high volume and why did you do that transition and what that looked like?
Absolutely. So Virginia Beach Patios started maybe midway through 2015, and our first goals were to come into the market, and Virginia Beach seemed to be an under worked market when it came to hardscaping. There were some companies around that were doing the normal type projects, rectangle patios with 6x8s and 6x9s, and you'd see a fire pit, and that was about it for the most part. So we kind of came in and started to try to up the ante a little bit, work on the design side of what we were doing and catering to those clients. Rather quickly, we went from being a maybe 50 jobs a year company, and it jumped real quick in 2017, 18 to about 170 projects a year. They were averaging, in the $10,000 to $30,000 range, and we saw a fast growth rate where we were scaling without even really having a plan to scale at that time. I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but it definitely ramped up fast, and we had to follow along accordingly.
You were just doing as much as you could based on the market demand. You're like, well, make hay while the sun shines. Yeah. Business demand is there. Let's just keep growing, and we'll figure it out.
We did. And we realized right away that one thing that we didn't have was like a physical office space. So our when we first started out, our process was a little bit different. We had a crew, and we would go out and we'd do our projects and do them well and get good reviews, post it on social media, and it would keep growing that way. But the first thing that we did was we went and we opened up a physical showroom inside of like an industrial office park, and there was a small garage size showroom. We built a water feature and outdoor kitchen, put pavers down, and started to invite the clients in prior to us going out to them, and that gave what I think was a big push up in our case. We weren't just a guy with a notebook and a pickup truck showing up. All of a sudden, we had a physical location. It took some of the bad reputation that the construction industry can have, especially in the residential side of people that aren't honorable and have done bad things in the past, to take that side of it out of the client's perception. And And from doing that, we quickly outgrew that space and moved into a larger one and replicated what we did on a little bit of a larger scale. And it was at that time that we really were working ragged on getting 150, 170 projects done a year. And the money was coming in. It wasn't that there was a small profit margin. In some cases, it's even a better profit margin. You're in and out. But it was noticed that the going into 150, 170 different driveways, going through 150, 170 different gates, and dealing with 170 different clients was what was bogging us down, was just that side of it. So at that point, we decided to really ramp up our customer service side of the business. So our back of house staff, dealing with everything from the bookkeeping department that made sure that any vendors and subcontractors were paid on a regular basis. So we were able to attract some of the in my opinion, better performing contractors to come and do work for us. And I mean, we needed electricians and plumbers and gas contractors and so on and so forth. So learning that supply chain game with vendors, and then learning how to work with outside contractors and keep them as a big, they're an advocate of us. Our team members, contractors that work for us, subcontractors we hire, if we're putting out the perception that we're this top-notch company, we're doing things the right way, we're paying them on time, we're not nickel and diming certain things, and we're starting to understand how much we needed each other to get to the goals where we were trying to get to, was really building that. And to do that, we had to sacrifice profit and spend a little bit more up front. And we had to invest right back into the business, because our goals were to not do better projects. We always were proud of the work that we're doing, but it was more to find better clients. And those clients in turn are living in circles. They're hanging out at the golf course. They're going to the country club, and they have access to the clients that we're trying to attract. I don't feel like there was a turning point where it changed, but at one point we said, well, we looked at and social media played a big part of that. We would see other projects, and they were trickling in, and this was probably 2018, 2019, starting to see some higher end, large scale projects that seemed to be obtainable to us. That like, we have properties around us, and we could do that. And the question was, like, how do we change that age-old process of going to meet a client, holding the catalogs in your hand and asking them, what do they like? So changing it around to bringing them to us and not going on-site consultations was something that we were looking into doing pre-COVID, and how to mesh that in with our design service, and learning what we should be charging for our design services versus what was in the past always used as a way to get someone in the door. Like, we're going to give you a design if you're doing this. And our old way was that it was, we're going to give you the world and you're going to hire us for this job, and we're going to do better than anyone else. I'm always going to include underground drainage coming out of your downspouts. We had things that we included in our warranty that made us a little bit, maybe a better value in some senses back then. And for the most part, it was also our training period. When it came to our back of house staff, it wasn't that we were a big company that could afford to pay huge salaries to people that had been in the business for years. So we're bringing in people that either we were attracted to based on their ability to speak or talk, or their customer service background, and having a team that is sort of built at the same time as we were scaling up was very helpful to have us all go through this journey at the same time. And
you're building the business and the team together. This episode is brought to you by Hardscaper.com. The Hardscaper mission is to empower industry professionals with the skills, inspiration, and confidence they need to take their businesses to new heights. Struggling with training programs for your team? Looking for helpful tips to build a better company? Subscribe today to gain access to hours of interactive on-demand Hardscape construction and business courses for free. Check out Hardscaper.com. So, Patrick, like obviously building that business up and building the people within the business together along the evolution of the company was critical to getting it to where it is today, because you have a lot of people that have been there for a while and have been on that journey and have learned together. And not only did they learn together, they learned the way that you saw for the business moving forward. I want to backtrack a little bit to a couple of the things that you said that I find super interesting. As you were going and you're growing the business, you're realizing that designs are a key way for you to differentiate. So this is like early on, you were just trying to get into the hardscape game, and then the design difference was what was getting you the jobs. And not only were you getting jobs, you were getting slightly better jobs than other people. So that kept building. The portfolio grows, it gets better. You start getting into bigger and better and bigger and better and bigger and better. And you just kept feeding the machine on the back end to make sure that could work. From there, you start realizing, we're consuming a lot more materials than we can handle with the current admin team that we have, which is probably you and Angela trying to figure it out just on your own. And then you start having to add some other people to it. At the same time, you want to make sure that you're paying your bills on time. So that there's that side, but there's also all the subcontractors that you're working with. And if you want to be able to work with the top tier subcontractors because you see yourselves as top tier hardscapers, then you need to be on the same level. And what does a top tier business do? Well, they have great admin. All the paperwork's always in order. Bills are getting paid on time. Follow-ups are thorough and timely. All that stuff is happening. So you're worried about that side of things. And the experience for the clients, because you're getting into more and more high-end stuff, and the clients need to have a seamless experience. So I find that really interesting because, when we talk about the Hardscape High Five, like we've been doing all season, number one is take care of your people. These are all your people. And you realized early on that it's important to prioritize taking care of all of them, because without them, your brand is nothing. You could be amazing, but if you don't have the team that supports it, nothing's going to happen. So I wanted to call that out because that for me is super insightful, because people leave that to last because they're just running and just trying to keep things going. But if it's sloppy on the admin side, you're going to fall into too many traps too often and too frequently, and it's really hard to get out of them. I've lived it myself in my own career, but I've seen countless companies have gone through that. And for you to realize that early on, that's probably a large contributor to why you are where you are today.
Yeah, I think so. Also, one of the things, basics, right? Like you build your CRM, you make sure that when someone calls, you know exactly who they are and when you were there. Even if it was 450 projects ago, that's a big part of it. But the team and having them believe in the vision that I'm professing out and saying, we can be doing better. We need better. We don't need better overall projects. We need to start finding different clients. One thing that was said one day was, and it was even, we were just starting to use like a higher end hardscape product or working with Techo Block, and the perception in our area was there's no one's going to pay for that material, let's say.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for us in Turning Point was that we just weren't talking to the right people. We didn't have the right customers. And Angela said, we just need different customers. And how to do that, there's no real secret sauce, but what you had alluded to earlier with building up a team and taking care of subcontractors and having that sort of buzz on the street is what helped us. Like we put a perception out there that we were a corporation, a company. People thought sometimes that they would be amazed that that we existed and weren't just in a franchise or something. And that was in at least in our case, the early inception of really utilizing social media. And the thought behind that was, I was doing social media posts and we all were doing them internally. And at first it was just to show even our team members and the people that are building it. And it was cool to tag them and say, hey, Sam, look at the great job you did. Now 300 people like it, or whatever it happens to be. It was cool. And we quickly saw that was not getting us more customers, but it was getting us more recognized just in town or going places. And we went to Hardscape, HNA, and a team of us are walking around, and there's people in Iowa that are recognizing us, and this and that. And it was just from doing Instagram posts, but doing them in a way where we were doing posts and having an energy to them that is who we wanted to be. There was a little bit of faking it till you make it in the beginning, and you can't expect to get the big fish if you're still putting out the small fish bait. So
what's that mean though? Like let's take a tangent. Obviously anybody can go to your Instagram feed and scroll through the timeline and see, but like give me one example that is about that, projecting the image of who you want to be perceived as, that helps you cater or attract the right type of client.
It's not really easy to answer that and put it into one thing, but I would say that we stayed consistent with our style and our message. So our message has been, we've already done all of the training. We have all of the right insurance. We're a Class A contractor that can not only build outdoor spaces, but we're licensed to build residential structures. And what the high-end client or the people that we were trying to attract, without knowing it, but learning that they want to see that they could call one company and one company can come and do everything. So if you're hiring someone if it's interior and you're hiring someone to remodel your kitchen, you're not going to hire you're going to hire one company, and that one company is going to hire a plumber and they're going to get the gas guy and the electrician. But you're going into one design center, you're picking out countertops, you're picking out everything that you want to make your dream area do. So what we did was try to show that you can do that with us. What we didn't do was it was never a let's have the most influence against other contractors or do that. We use other contractors the same way that maybe some people do us, is as a learning experience and to see what's being done. But we never really pulled back the curtain that much. And some people say that that's a better approach and you get more, you may get more views and more likes and things like that. But I just need one person to like it and to call me and tell me that that's what they want in their backyard, and it's done its job. It's not a big popularity contest to us, but we use it in advertising without having to pay for advertising. I'm doing a 8-second ad that is going to have a beat to it and show some cool pictures on a project and hopefully get someone's attention. But our plan was really not to firsthand attract that client. I don't think that the movers and shakers of the industry world have time to sit and go through Instagram, but I think that their kids do. I think their neighbors do. I think the people that they deal with do. And all they have to do is hear them say, hey, I'm thinking of doing an outdoor project. Hopefully they say, oh, you should see these guys. You should
check out these guys. Yeah.
And that was always the plan. I still do it and use my own kids as an example. They come and show me things like, hey, this is cool. So I want to do things that the 14 to 17-year-old kid, that the parent wants their children to hang out at home with their friends and be around and be part of their lives. Well, they want to be in a cool place. So pulling at that kind of the heartstrings of that is part of the process of how you get into those doors and how you attract people, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. Very rarely do I think that we're getting a direct result from social media to our end client, but through that, we're getting the feelers out there.
That's super interesting, though, in terms of the influence, like the level of thinking that you're doing, where like I don't need to directly reach my desired end client. I need to reach them, period. It's not direct. It could be indirect. If their spouse, if their friend, their cousin, their neighbor, someone else, some other contractors doing work in the home, and they mentioned they're thinking about doing something outside, well, these are the people that you need to call. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I saw interacting with you, both planning for the jobs or on the jobs, is the network of people that you can depend on. And like, we needed the dumpster to be moved. The guy was there the next morning. Boom, dumpster's out. Pool guy, we got this thing going on. Bang, pool guy shows up. The plumber, we're we got the trench and we got to fill in this trench. So we got to finish this plumbing. Bang, he's there. We need a delivery. Boom, the truck's there. Like it was just because you've put so much thought into influencing all these different people positively through the actions that you do and through the things that you do on social media, projecting that high-end image. People want to be associated with that, whether it be as a vendor, a client, a partner, a subcontractor, an employee, a future employee. It doesn't matter. The power of your brand has facilitated a lot of the growth of your business, and the power of the brand is being fueled by how you take care of people and how you focus on having a strong network.
That's the goal. Yes. The things you don't see and the things that actually move the machine that makes all that happen are people that may not even have a strong construction background, but they understand how to move things. So understanding the processes and the operations and us figuring out who should be talking to who. And we still run into the problems. I just had one today, but we have such great team members, and we have such great contractors that we team up with, and vendors that we work with, and suppliers, whatever it happens to be. They want to help us get to our goals so we could get to the next project. And we've had to almost scale back that communication to make it be that we have key figures at certain times of the project. So understanding your sale. So when you're in that process of trying to sell the project, you're not opening it up, and they're not dealing with certain people. So we all do the same thing. Your salesperson or the owner of the company, whoever it is that's trying to close that sale, is usually the front person dealing with that client. And then we get into the process of, we sold the project, and this is a complicated project. We have multifaceted things. We're installing a pool, we're installing multi-level walls, we have shade structures, we have outdoor kitchens with appliances, we have fire pit areas. In some cases, we're building a special purpose outdoor structure that is enclosed and has whatever that client's special purpose they want this for. We're doing one where they want a golf simulator, but it's going to be in their pool house. There's another that wants part of it to be a steam room that is going to be, I've never built a steam room before, but I'm not going to not want to do the project. I want to do a steam room, right? I want a steam room. So this is a great chance to do it, but it is a risk that you have to understand that just because you don't know exactly how to do everything, if you trust that process and you trust your team and your operations manager and your construction manager, in our case, to see the dream and understand it and get us to that point, we're living in a time where information is available in multi different areas. It's to not know something and to have that be the reason that you're not going to go forward on doing something is the fear of taking that chance. So a big part of I would say our success is also that risk, and it could be, if not managed properly and we don't have the right contingencies in place to make sure that we're protected, if things don't go exactly right, then it wouldn't work. And
Right.
the things that a lot of people don't see, even customers, clients, other contractors, is that those our people, our team that are behind, that are in the office, that never touch a shovel or even a tape measure in some cases, are what move the machine. They're the fuel that gets the subcontractor in touch with the to know when the material is going to be on site, to make sure that the project manager isn't sitting there waiting for 3 hours
Mm-hmm.
to meet an inspector or whatever it happens to be. So if you want to get involved in larger projects, and it doesn't matter what the budget of them are, it's the disciplines that are required to all come together. You have to understand what that critical path is. So training ourselves, and we've been doing it almost as a like we're trying to run like we're a large corporation and have regularly scheduled training sessions that are managed and come in, so that we're always giving new knowledge to everybody. But it's also trying to give everyone the confidence so that when they are speaking of things to someone, that they could speak with it with some authority, but also the sense of being able to actually say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to find out and I'm going to get right back to you. Where
Confidence is a big part of that. Too many times you meet people and they'll bullshit an answer because they're so worried of losing the job or losing the trust or the confidence of the client by saying, I don't know. But I mean, if you don't know, say you don't know, but I know where to find it, so let me get back to you. You know, you cannot be a master of all things construction. That's not possible.
It is not possible. We call it building your index. So having an index of understanding small factors of everything that we're doing is important. So if we sell a bioclimatic louvered pergola system that we sell and install and we do pretty well with them, we want to know everything about not just that system but the competitor's system, so that we could talk with knowledge to it. But that person that's talking with it really doesn't know how to install that system. They're not the person that is going to know the ins and outs of it. We need to know, what does it serve its purpose? Does it fit into this design? Is it something that the customer wants? But being able to bring up a product that someone maybe not even know about has been really helpful to us. So aligning with these products or higher end
higher end materials,
features,
finishes, products, features, whatever it is. If you're bringing something to the table that the client was not previously exposed to, that is positioning you as a very knowledgeable resource. Like they should be even more interested in working with you. And it's counterintuitive, you know, like I've met a lot of people over the course of my career, like you introduce them to a product. Let's say when I go into a new market years ago, I'd go into Toronto where people had never heard of TechoBlock before. And you'd meet two types of people. You'd meet the contractor that would say, well, I can't sell this. Nobody's ever heard of this before. And then you had the other people that would say, I can sell this. Nobody's ever heard of this before.
Right.
And it's the latter that really they tap into the higher end, more exclusive clientele, because they're coming in with a novelty and a level of knowledge and enthusiasm behind that novelty that really gets the client excited. And ultimately, like anytime a client's making a luxury purchase like what we sell, there's a lot of emotional motivation behind it. They want to feel good about it. And if I feel like I'm getting into something that nobody's ever heard of before, this is freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want. And you've done a great job with that. Like when I looked at your showroom and I look at the like you said, the louvered pergolas, the outdoor kitchen systems that you talk about, even the choice of materials. When you're building a kitchen, you like to go with a decked-in countertop because of the UV resistance, the thermal resistance, the shock resistance, the bacterial resistance, all this stuff. It's super high-end. It is not the cheapest material by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a great option if the client has the budget and is interested by that.
Right, it is. And just talking about those materials are things that I would be uncomfortable with if I didn't have those relationships. And we brought Decton in, and they, they want to be a part of what we're doing. We bringing a an outdoor kitchen product that's different than a masonry option. We're still pushing and designing masonry kitchens all the time, or outdoor kitchens, or features, whatever fits. But we like to always have and be ready for those questions.
Options.
Being in Virginia Beach too, we didn't want to be. It's a coastal community. We have salt in the air. There's storms that come through. So even knowing the quality and the difference between what has been being used, what you could make yourself out of products you could buy versus what's being engineered and manufactured for a specific purpose was not an easy decision. It wasn't something that I even thought was. I thought it was a little cheesy at first, years ago. Like, why am I going to put this here? We could build this pergola, or we could do that. But now looking at like the time that it takes to do all this versus the time it takes for me to figure out the design we want and then sending it off to the professionals, and then it shows up on a truck, and all we have to do is assemble,
follow the manual, go.
But it's not a big box store. Like it's never going to look like it's a big box store, and it's also something that none of my competitors, in the most cases,
are offering.
And that leads us right into what a luxury project client or a multifaceted project client is going to be looking for, and it's that.
If we talk about materials, you talked about some of the features and stuff, but the client's expectations with regards to materials, is there a difference in let's say, picking the paving? We're talking about floors and walls for outside. If you're talking about earlier, that kind of track style building that you were doing and just pumping out jobs, versus now, you're still doing a ton of work. You're still doing a ton of jobs, but they are much larger and much more high end, and there's a lot more details. Is there a difference in the way that they look at the products and the way they perceive them and the way they select them? And do you have to change your approach?
So there's a few different ways that goes. Sometimes we are not the initial contact with a client, and they've already been working with a designer, and they have an idea of where they're going with that, or they're just going to do whatever the designer says. So in those cases, sometimes we'll go into the engineering of that project and talk to the designer and say, hey, you have this is a 100 millimeter product that you're putting in around this pool. And, is there a reason that you want to do this, or is it just the look? And a lot of times it's just the aesthetic. So we're going to find ourselves working with products that do not move as fast as a 60 millimeter product, let's say. And, our crew, our tools, everything's set up for one type of system. And now all of a sudden we're changing that. So where the clients on that end don't really get involved in anything other than, the color or the shape of something, we then bring it up at that point when we're starting to look at value engineering and ways to get us to a budget that we're trying to get to. That's one of the first things that we will bring up is the material selections. And most times they see the alternative and go back to what the original thought was. So it becomes way less about cost of something per the square foot or area, and more, hey, we have this number in mind. If we need to go over it, I'd rather have, what I pictured in my mind of this project. We've recently had one that we're going to be starting soon, and it's a big, I think 6,800 square foot driveway, all using Techo-Block sleek pavers, and then the whole pool deck is done in diamond. In Virginia, we don't have a huge freeze thaw section. People use 60 millimeter material on driveway applications and all the time. It's not something that you see a lot of failure of. So our options are maybe different than they are in different parts of the country. But for us, we've always thought of it like trying to get the best value. once we've gone into this next echelon of clientele, that doesn't always come to mind. Like nobody's just throwing money in the air and saying, do whatever you want with it. But the value is in the quality that they are perceiving, that they're receiving, and also how they're going to feel for the next however many years living on this. And the big difference between the two type of clients, from the ones that we were doing, those $10,000 to $30,000 projects, to $250 to $1.3 million projects, the little details of picking out materials becomes, or the detail of picking out materials becomes way more time consuming. So even if if we don't have a designer and we are the designer, we're going to bring in options. And it was a pain in the neck when we were trying to do everything in-house and bring around samples and do this and do that. But not to go off on another tangent, another whole course here, but when you're building up that perception of your company and your name, it's not just for the clients. It's for the vendors. It's for the people that you're using. So if who we're buying our hardscape material from looks at us as this company, this juggernaut that's going to be able to keep them busy and they're going to do some extra things for us, and we're going to ask them to hand deliver samples to this client, because in my mind, we've been making people's jobs easy in the past years, and we've been doing a lot of that legwork and being the salesman of a manufactured product that we don't manufacture or sell. Right. And that perception of how we're going to handle that has changed for me, especially in the past few years, that we want to put that back on the manufacturer a little bit more. We want to put that back on the dealers a little bit more and have them more involved with us. So our number one dealer that we use, he's a key member of our team, and we utilize those people to navigate a lot of the stressful things that we were running into, the bottlenecks that we're running into. And that isn't just when a project is started. That's now when we're trying to sell the project, and we want to utilize their services in that case. And I feel like being comfortable and knowing that that's available to you it was a tough thing for us. It wasn't that long ago. I was intimidated to even just walk into a supply yard and try to ask questions, but to have the ability to get them to change their policies to meet our needs, and to get them to understand that, if you have the ability to provide all these different products that we're using, then why can't we get that all to come on one truck? So we try to get my lighting, the lighting products that we like to do, get them into the hands of our suppliers so that can all come on one truck. Everything is trying to be, we're constantly trying to
make the two sides fit together.
Yeah, and it's not quite always just about that day's efficiency. It adds up over the course of a week, a month, a year, of how many times you've been jumping in your truck and running one place or another, going to pick this up, drop it off there, to bring them into the mix and make them accountable in our success, because it's their success also.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and it's not done often enough. Sitting down with your dealer and saying, listen, this is where I'm taking my business. I need a partner to help me do that. Not a financial partner, not an investor. I need a partner that I know can rely on, that is going to grow with me. This is the vision. This is where we're going. You don't need to put all the cards on the table. You got to put enough of them, though, so that they have something to buy into. But saying, like, listen, this is the type of job that we're going to be selling. I'm looking for a supplier that can hook me up with all of these hardscape goods, these lighting goods, these accessories. This is the brand of polymeric sand that I like to use. These are the fabrics and grids that I like to use. These are the plumbing accessories and irrigation accessories that I like to use. How many of these can we work together on so that I can get them, like you said, delivered on one truck? Because if I can do that, I have a partner I can count on, and I'm going to drive all my business through them because you made my life easy. And I, in turn, will make your life easy by being super organized with my orders. I will be on time with my payments. This is my admin person. This is my list of contacts. All of my projects are scheduled at least 2 weeks out. So the delivery, you always have at least 2 full weeks to turn around an order from me. If we have that agreement, and I'm making some of this stuff as I'm going, but like if we have that kind of agreement, then we're in a position where we're on the same page and we can build together. And it's more interesting for both sides. As a dealer, if I know the business or I have some kind of guarantee or some kind of commitment that you're going to pull through on this, I have a lot of incentive to figure some of this stuff out for you.
Yeah.
And I think that cannot be understated.
Yeah, I think that was a big turning point for us to be comfortable, and we did exactly that. We said, we want you and your boss to come in and sit down with us, and we want to tell you exactly what our needs are. If you want to, we get phone calls. I'm sure every other business owner or manager, whatever you are in your business, we get phone calls all the day. Everyone is doing their job to sell us different things. The difference for us, at least that time around, was we knew that our dealer at the time was not going to make those changes, and they didn't really see the writing on the wall that we did, that there was going to be a big influx, and I needed to be able to move massive amount of materials to different places. So when we decided to have that meeting, a light bulb went off for them, a light bulb went off for us, and it became a regular thing. But it was really just asking. Like it wasn't like we went in and said, we want this or you're not going to get our business. It was more of like, this is a list of things that we would love to do that would make our life easier that maybe you weren't aware of. And it by looking at where your team members are, if I could keep people out of driving around from spot to spot. This was probably right around the time like when fuel costs were going a little crazy, and we decided at that point we're no longer going to do the traditional process of get a lead, go to the lead's house, measure areas, send them back a proposal. At that time, we made a lot of those changes, and it was to be more efficient, but at the same time, it was to give everyone more value, whether it be our partners or our clients, and mostly our team members. And the stress of having to keep on appointments, and you're driving from one section of town to another section, and then you have to be somewhere in a half hour, and you're still sitting at someone's kitchen table and talking about things. It took all that about, and we started to stop looking at it as one salesman who was going to earn commission on these sales, and started to build a sales team that can all benefit together from being able to bring their particular skills in. That was a big change, and then having those people work directly with the vendors and talk about things. So there comes times where you can make that phone call to your preferred vendor and say, hey, this one particular job, I really need to have I need some help on it. Do you have some material that someone returned that you need to get rid of that wasn't part of your thing? And you wouldn't know that if you weren't constantly trying to find
communication and working together.
Exactly. Yeah. So now, they had a big order of some material, and all of a sudden that isn't going to be needed anymore. We're working with big, heavy pallets, and the real name of that game is the transportation of it, and the storage of it, and how many times it's going to be handled. So if we could then go back to a client and say, I know we weren't meeting your budget. Here's an alternate material that you can go look at. That may happen once or twice a year, but when it happens, it's the difference between
making a sale or not.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's the relationships are super important. I think, as we wrap this episode up, I'm looking at it, and ultimately, you want to make that transition and get into the high end. Mm-hmm. We've said it, I don't know how many times. You got to take care of those people. build that network, work together with them. And the way that you said it just a few seconds ago, figure out how you can give everyone more value. And even what I find super interesting what you said, when you rattled off who are the people you have to give more value to, you didn't say clients. You said everybody else, because inherently that will result in more value for the clients. And that's the key.
They're going to see that when you're able to make moves and you're able to do some of the things you mentioned before, is those are relationships that we built. And mostly you build those because you don't have all the answers. You need to, there's way too many things to know in what we're trying to do. So right now we're redoing that internally. We're rebuilding our contractor list and our updating it so it's not what it was 2 years ago, and we want to now start holding everyone accountable. Time is really important, and a missed appointment can throw off our whole day. If I took someone off of a place to go meet a potential subcontractor that's going to be doing the plumbing work on a new pool house, if they're not showing that they have the same amount of commitment to their admin stuff, and that there's going to always be someone that's going to answer the phone, or there's going to be a voicemail system that isn't full. And it happens to all of us. We all get busy. We all get dragged. We're just coming out of another crazy season where I haven't had lunch in months, but I do it because I love that energy, and we want to find people around us that have that same energy. So when we're dealing with and trying to find the best subcontractors, it's not the guy with the biggest ad. It's not the guy sometimes that even understands how to get on Instagram. It's usually
not him.
Yeah. And that's our goal. That's what we look for. We want to find those diamonds in the rough that are, really great at what they do, but they'd rather be out working than talking to a client. And our skill set is and the way that we built our companies is to focus on that client first. That's the perception, but it takes all of that background work and all those relationships and having all of these details at our disposal at any time. So building those systems is the main thing that gets you up to being able to actually, because one thing is selling one of these projects. The second thing is trying to actually get it done.
Yeah.
That's a whole other
Not the same thing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's selling those jobs. Well, why don't we wrap it up there? And if you're cool with it, I'd love to have you back on, and we can talk about some of the other things that you're alluding to that, there really should be another episode, which is like the team structure and the impact on the business. Because you're talking about all these people, but like that back of house, who are they? What are they? What do they do? That client first mentality in terms of how you build your roster, how you recruit people, how you train your people, client first mentality, and how that translates into selling, which is a whole other can of worms, especially when you get into the high end stuff, because these are discerning clients with sophisticated tastes. They have money, but there's a reason they have money. It's because they know how to make it and they know how to save it. So you got to know how to navigate that. So if you're cool with that, I'd love to say, let's save that for another episode, and let's wrap this one up, because this is more than enough to chew on. I have 3 pages of notes, and they're all really good. Really, this was super, man. Play this one back for people who are listening. Play this one back, because there's a ton of good stuff there that you need to kind of read between the lines on some of the stuff we're talking about. But understanding the importance of who do you work with, who is the circle that rides with you, that gets these jobs done. You cannot underestimate the impact that has when you have the right people on the bus. It makes all the difference in the world, and the success of your 2 businesses in such a short period of time, tapping into the type of projects that you're doing, dealing with the types of clients that you're working with, and having the type of people and the quality of people in your companies is a testament to how you make that a priority. And anybody who's wondering how do you grow that business and take it to that other level, listen to this one 1, 2, 3, 4 times even if you have to, because Patrick's right. There's a lot of good stuff here.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing you again.
All right, man. Until next time, everybody, work hard, pave harder, and we'll see you next week on the Hardscape Growth Show. You've been listening to Hardscape Growth, a podcast for hungry professionals who want to grow their businesses and level up. Each episode is all about taking the next step in running your business, so make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on your favorite podcast player. And if you're finding this information to be useful, help others in your position discover us by giving us a star rating and leaving a comment. We'll see you next week.